Welcome back! This time I'll modify probably the most popular power tool of any workshop, an angle grinder to a power file. I took this M14 coupling nut which turns in a roller during the process. I plan to use some hardwood around the nut, but later on decided to glue a few pieces of the plywood to achieve the higher strength. 3 layers of 15 mm plywood will be exactly the same height as the coupling nut. The miter saw, glue and clamps do the job, and the plywood brick was made. The outer roller shape was cut with a hole saw and the inner hole by using the Forstner bit with a centering template assistance. A strong hit with a hammer left precise shape and indication of how much plywood must be chiseled out to make a perfect fit. I use 5 minutes epoxy to glue the coupling nut inside the plywood roller. When the epoxy was rock solid, started to shape the needed roller form. First, I cleaned both ends. Second, used the angle grinder and a belt sander to make the roller perfectly round. And third, I found the middle of the roller and sanded down a slight angle from sides to the middle. This roller shape will act as self-adjusting belt guide and will keep the sanding belt in place. The roller is done, let's move on to the support structure. I used 25 by 25 mm square steel tube and cut 30 cm piece. By using angle grinder shaft as a reference point, found the ideal place where the square tube should be attached. Also marked how much the angle grinder guard should be trimmed to make enough space for all upcoming parts. The square tube will be attached with 2 M8 bolts, so I drilled 2 holes on the angle grinder guard and after that repeated that on the square tube. By drilling the smaller hole first, I got a better centering point for a bigger drill bit. This also made it easier to drill a larger hole. The square pipe center is a bit offset from the needed roller centering line, and it should be somewhere about here. So I used these 3 washers made from 3 mm steel to align the pipe and roller centers. Added one more custom cut steel washer under the nuts to spread both tightening force into a wider surface. The next moving part will be made from 20 by 20 mm square steel tube, which nicely fits inside the 20 mm square tube. To keep the sanding belt always tensioned, I'll use this spring under the smaller square tube. The spring sits on the first bolt, which can be said about the square tube. This spring should not get stuck into the pipe. Not a big deal. Few cuts with the angle grinder, a bit of hammering, and the support surface were done. I'm planning to use this sanding belt, which is made for a regular belt sander. I already measured that the total length from one side to another should be 24 cm. Secure the metal ruler with a pair of magnets in place and marked a few reference lines with 1 cm spacing on the smaller tube. By compressing spring, I found that the perfect travel should be 1 centimeter. So I marked the place where the ruler shows 0 and added that additional centimeter for spring compression travel. Cut with the angle grinder on the mark to get the final length. One end of the smaller pipe will sit on the spring, while another one should keep sandpaper rolling. A pair of the small bearings will make it possible. I used 24 by 8 mm sized bearing with the 8 mm inner hole. The width of two bearings stacked together will fit perfectly inside this tube. Marked and drilled a hole for a bolt, which will secure bearings in place. After that, cut and trim the metal to get nice and tight slot for bearings. Some final shaping was made with the angle grinder and the belt sander. Added a very thin washer in between the square tube and the bearing to ensure that the bearing will not rub into the tube. As I mentioned before, I'm planning to use the regular belt sander sanding belts. As they are way too wide for this power file, I simply cut them into my preferred width. This one was cut to 3 cm width. This power file setup is capable to use from 16 to almost 40 mm with sanding belts. I spun the belt by hand to check if everything is straight and the shaped roller is keeping the belt aligned in the center. And looks, it does. To blend in all fabricated parts to the angle grinder, I made a quick spray can paint job. Here's some test sanding on different materials. It is no matter if you need to clean a very rusted metal surface or to trim sharp metal edges. This power file makes this job very easy. Together with fast work, it also provides very precise grinding control. Talking about the wood, this beast eats it like butter. Hey, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos. Till the next time, bye.